It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
Unfortunately, you can't control what happens in the cost of housing. You can't control what happens in the student debt market. You can't control inflation. I mean, maybe you can control what job you take and what part of the country that you live in. But by and large, and because we've been doing these shows for long enough, we know that while right now is difficult for most Americans because of these other events, it is not just right now that folks are making bad decisions and are ending up in less than ideal financial situations. So we want to walk you through what you can do, ways that you can protect yourself, ways that you will not fall into those statistics. And the first one is plain and simple. If you've been listening to us for any length of time, you know this is something we believe makes sense, is we feel like a lot of folks that find themselves in that situation where they can't come up with $1,000 or can't come up with $400, they simply don't have a plan in place.
Yeah, let's jump into a few of these things because I think it's important to understand. I mean, the biggest part is like debt. I mean, a lot of people, I think that is the trap that a lot of people are falling into. As I've shared, housing is running away from people. Cars are actually appreciating in some weird way. So how do you have to have a plan to tackle these things. And one of the things I always tell people is we're looking at this, because I really do. If you want to know how nerdy Bo and I are, I sit around and actually think about what are things we can tell our audience to navigate these unique times. And I had a lot of conversations this weekend about housing and specifically. Sure. And here's the good news. With interest rates going up, I do feel like some of the craziness is being squeezed out of the system, meaning that due diligence is being added back to where you can now do inspections. You might be able to actually put contingencies, because if you don't have 20 offers on a piece of property, you're actually going to have the ability to navigate this. So I would tell somebody, have a plan how you can handle that. Doesn't fix the debt part of it because you still with the rising prices, but you at least now can get some normalcy and then apply all the great things like, am I going to live in this house for the next 7 years? Am I moving? Cars, slow down. I know you're probably going, I hate that people aren't going to be able to buy cars like we normally have. There is an aging of the fleet of cars that we're all driving, but it is allowing you, I think this situation, I would sit back, wait, and I think that if you could plan for the future, you'll have an opportunity to correct that as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting is most people hear plan like, oh man, that means it's got to be something complicated. That means it's got to be something hard. And I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said this. You made fun of me because I normally say that he's the guy, but I think he actually said this. When he has this quote, it says, failing to plan is planning to fail. And there's some truth in that, but you don't need to get caught up in the complexity of it. For you, creating a plan might be just putting together a budget, or it might just need to be something like, hey, my plan is I'm going to save 25% of my gross income until I reach the point that then I need to think about other things like tax analysis, like insurance planning, like college planning, like fill in the blank. But those folks who don't have a plan, and Brian, I'm going to give you credit for this nomenclature because you're the one who says this. If you don't have a plan and you're starting out in the financial world or you're living in the financial world, you're often just like a rudderless ship. What does that mean, Brian? What does it mean to be a rudderless ship?
If you're rudderless, it's hard to get to navigate because look, you have to be very deliberate with every dollar in your army of dollar bills. And if you don't have a plan, if you don't have the rudder to navigate, you don't end up in the final destination that you're seeking for. And that's why, look, we have created a system, and I think it's so important, because I just covered the big stuff. Like I talked about housing, I talked about cars. A lot of you, I had family in town for my daughter's graduation, and I had my own sister-in-law asking, hey, should I be considering doing Airbnbs when I know we're still working on maxing out retirement plans and things like that. So there's a lot of people who don't have the knowledge or can't figure out what to do with their next dollar. And that's why we've tried to create a system. Guys, please take advantage of. Go to moneyguy.com/resources. We have the financial order of operations. And then if you want a deep dive, if you need to accelerate your financial mutant status, you can also go to learn.moneyguy.com. And we have a great course to help you maximize as well as accelerate your wealth building process.
And this is for the do-it-yourselfers out there. If you want to know, hey, what should I be doing? How should I go? I'm not quite ready for taking the relationship to the next level, but I need something more. I've had a plan in place, and now I need to improve upon that plan or understand some of the whys behind the plan. That's what the course is for. But if you are someone who says, you know what, I've done the course and I've worked through that, but man, things have gotten complicated, or the numbers are so big that I'm uncomfortable, or I'm so busy, I need a co-pilot. a great way to get a plan in place is to think about hiring a relationship to help take your finances to the next level. That's what we get to do on our day job. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to aboundwealth.com, work with us. You can check out what it is that we do, how we do that. Because when you have a plan in place, one of the biggest things that will help you do is not skip steps.
Yep.
I get so frustrated, specifically with folks in my stage of life. And they're still, what I would say, in like the foundational building phase, and yet they go upgrade the house, or they go buy the luxury car, or they go start doing the rental property, like you said. And they don't realize that there's an order and a structure to doing this. Well, with a good plan, you can make sure that you're following the steps in the right way and not getting ahead of yourself, not getting out over your skis, not getting overextended where you're setting yourself up to potentially fail down the road.
Well, I think having a plan also keeps you from getting desperate, because I think, I think, like I said, the conversations I have where somebody, it tells me they want to get into doing Airbnbs or real estate. I'm like, wow, we skipped some steps in between there. But I think there's just this pressure that you feel like, hey, if I'm sitting on cash or I don't know what I'm doing with my next dollar, I need to be doing something, because this is what I'm seeing on social media is how everybody's making their money right now. You need to cut out all the noise. And that's why I love that we have created a step-by-step so that you can know, hey, cash reserves are important, because even though, yes, they don't pay a ton right now, it is going to be just like oxygen is so important to us and we take it for granted. Your cash reserves will get you through whatever may be coming our way. Risk and estate planning, like your insurance, your estate documents, your life insurance, all these things need to be taken into account. Where does that fall into this? You need to have a plan of action, as well as the debt and retirement savings. Don't overlook these things. Have a plan so that you don't get yourself in a pickle where you're really making bad decisions because you just were floundering and rudderless and not knowing what to do.